back to my channel. In today's video, I just wanted to take you through some research that I've done on one of my ancestors, and hopefully it can also help you researching your ancestors too. So I did some research on my great uncle, Frederick Coop. He was born in South Australia and he moved to Victoria with his mother and father, and he was in World War I. And I wanted to do a little bit more digging into his experience of World War I. So I used both the National Archives of Australia and Trove, which is part of the National Library of Australia. And both of those websites are incredible. So I thought I would just take you through step by step and show you how I sort of fleshed out his wartime experience, I suppose. Before we get started, make sure that you hit the subscribe button if you are new and ring the notifications bell so that you'll be updated of all my future videos. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so you need to go to the National Archives website, which is nwwa.gov.au, then click on Explore the Collection and Record Search. Then, as you can see, there's different kinds of searches, but for what I'm doing, I'm just going to use the name search and put in my ancestor's name. So it's such a nice, simple way to search this one. And then I'm going to look at the World War I records, but you can select whatever you're doing depending on what you're looking for. Okay, so that brings up Frederick William Coop, which is exactly what I'm looking for. His mother is Mary Coop, and I can just view the digital copy. Now, not all of them are available, but quite a lot are. So you can just open it up from there, and there you go. That's a huge document. That's his war record. So yeah, the front page obviously gives me all the particulars about his enlistment. And as you can see, it's 54 pages worth of documents here. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll just show you a little bit. So that page is good because it gives me his age and his height and weight and measurements and distinctive marks and eye color and hair color and all that sort of stuff. So if I didn't really know what he looked like, then I would have a really nice description there. These couple of pages look like they might have been sort of duplicated. A lot of the military records are like that, copies of things. So this is good because I've got a bit of a timeline here now, and it shows me when he went to hospital. I know that he died in hospital in England. So it's hard to read some of that small writing, but I can look a bit closer with the zoom tool. So I'll click on that and it'll open it up in a new window. So I'm not going to spend time now transcribing that, but it's a lot clearer with the zoom tool there. So I'll just keep going. So as you can see, I can keep clicking through from within this window as well. So all of these, once again, they're giving me timelines of his movements in and out of hospital. Actually, this seems to be more like a hospital record. There's his death and his burial and the details of his burial, where he's buried, his grave number, everything like that, which is in England, so I can't go there, but once again, it seems to be more burial info. More death information. This one is a response to a letter from his mother. So Mrs. M. Coop is Mary Coop, his mother, and if I click forward, it'll show me that was her original letter to them requesting information. So it's good that you've sort of got both sides of the correspondence. I've got a letter from her, which, for starters, she's my 3 times great grandmother, and suddenly I can now see her writing, and I can see the response to him. I can tell that she was really brokenhearted about his death from the way that she writes. Like at the bottom there, I'm dreadfully anxious. And his will that he left to his father, his horse and gig and harnesses, and to his mother he left his money and the rest of his property. So sad. I mean, he was only 23, which is just tragic. So this is another response about his condition. So this was another letter. So the other response was to this letter. This letter was actually from his fiancée, Olive Lane, who obviously never saw him again, which is really sad. But she was also requesting information. I suppose that they'd heard that he died and really didn't get all the particulars. More things that seem to have been sent to his mother or family. His enlistment application. So as you can see, these military files are full of all sorts of stuff, and it really kind of depends on what that person's experience was. So a lot of these ones for Frederick Coop are hospital things and burial things because he was sick. Like, he didn't serve for a very long time before getting sick in France and being transferred to England and being treated there. So quite a lot of his stuff is medical. But for example, if your ancestors' experience was different, like they would have a different looking file, they might have more about their movements, more about where they served, what they did, any kind of awards or anything that they got, any other correspondence to do with what their situation was. So I've seen different types of records depending on the type of person. So yeah, there is no sort of really typical file. Alright, switching tactic and looking at Trove, that's trove.nla.gov.au, and clicking on digitized newspapers. I can type in his name and have a look here and see what I can find. So I'm going to put in Frederick Coop. I'm going to narrow it to Victoria, and I'm also going to narrow the decade to the years sort of surrounding the First World War, and just see what I can find. So nothing here is really like ringing bells at the moment. I'll switch it up. I'll change it to F Coop, and I know he was from Horsham, or I think that was where he enlisted anyway. I'll try that. Have a look at this one, dangerously ill, because I do know that he was sick. So yeah, if you look just above that, you can see prisoners of war, and then you can see dangerously ill, and then underneath that, wounded. So that's probably right. Let's see what else I can find. change it up again. Try Fred Coop. So like using different sources, using Trove and using the National Archives, you're just going to get different sort of aspects of a person's life. So the war record will give you certain kinds of information, and newspapers will, of course, will give you other kinds of information. But okay, I'll change it to Lower Norton instead of Horsham because that was the specific kind of area. So I was sort of starting wide and then narrowing down. Okay, this one's bang on the money. Lower Norton. I'll zoom it in a bit. On Tuesday evening, a very pleasant and enjoyable evening was spent by the numerous friends and well-wishers of Mr. Fred Coop. Mr. G. something Francis kindly placed his residence and barn at the disposal of those who participated in the entertainment. The inclement weather did not prevent a large number of the district residents attending, and the tiny tots were much in evidence. The proceedings opened in the parlour with a song by Miss Ivy Francis, When the Boys Come Home. The company joins in the chorus. Several musical items were rendered, and Miss Francis and Mrs. J. Penny played the accompaniments on the splendid organ belonging to Mr. and Mrs. Francis. At 8:30, the company adjourned to the barn where dancing and games were indulged in by young and old until morning. Taking advantage of an interval in the merrymaking, Mr. Francis announced that the event of the evening, making a presentation to Mrs. Coop, would be proceeded with. Mr. D. Baker, in a capable speech, enumerated the several good qualities possessed by Private Coop, and remarked that on behalf of those present, he had great pleasure in presenting him with 2 small tokens, a safety razor and a pocket wallet, and hoped they would remind him of his friends at Lower Norton. Mr. Francis endorsed everything that had been previously said. Private Coop had been held in high esteem by everyone who knew him. Mr. Francis remarked that it was the duty of every young man who could to go to the front. He wished Private Coop Godspeed and a safe return. Mr. J. Day Hannon, who had been Private Coop's employer, stated that he'd always found him to be a conscientious worker. He'd done his work quite as well and as much of it when he, Mr. Hannon, was away as when he was with him. Mr. Hannon said that when he heard that Fred had enlisted, he was sorry, yet glad. He was sorry to lose such an efficient workman, and glad that he was manly enough to enlist and fight for his king and country. He wished him a safe return, and to his home and his people. 3 cheers were heartily given for the guest of the evening, and God Save Our Splendid Men was sung by all. Mr. and Mrs. Francis are to be congratulated on their successful effort at making everyone feel that they are having a good time. Supper was served in the dining room at 12:30, and the young and old did people justice to the good things provided by the ladies of the company. Private Coop, during the evening, sang My Little Wet Home in the Trench. Masters Darcy Coop and D. Baker rendered Tipperary, their sweet young voices blending in the charming manner. Miss T. Baker also pleased the company with her song Juanita. Messrs. W. Baker and Sid Lane provided splendid music for the dancers. When the entertainment came to an end, everyone agreed that it was one of the most enjoyable evenings that had been spent at Lower Norton. That article it's such a good one because it gives us so much personal sort of stuff, right? Like, even though it's not sort of his perspective, it's a time that he experienced. It was a night before he was sent away to war that he and a bunch of people from his town got together and just enjoyed each other's company. And it's just a little bit sad though when you see this stuff about, you know, how they presented him with his 2 little gifts, and you wonder if he still had them with him, because it was to remind him of his friends at Lower Norton. And you think, do you think he still had them when he was in hospital and alone in England? It would have just been so hard. Okay, so back to the search. I'll see what else I can find. Oh, it just tugs on the heartstrings, that one. No, this doesn't seem to be anything. I'll alter it again and just open it up to Coop in general. Private F.W. Coop. Private F.W. Coop of Lower Norton, writing from Devonport Hospital. Something friend says, I suppose you have been anxious on account of not getting many letters. You see, we did not something at any point till we got to Cape Town. Yeah, that side of the text is hard to read, so I might go back and see if it's possible for me to find a better copy of this one. It's clearly a good one because it's coming directly from him. So it's Friday the 8th of December 1916. It may have appeared in a different newspaper or just been reprinted in the same paper. An in memoriam service. I don't know if that one's him or not, because it's just in memoriam, maybe. Probably, yeah, actually. Looks like it's just after the war. School picnic, I just can't resist that one. Even though it's earlier, it's not really wartime. It looks like a couple of his siblings were there. Australia's Honour Roll. So that's just a little mention, but it's something. You can learn quite a lot just from scouring Trove, and as you can see, sometimes you have to type in just different phrases or just change the way that you're typing somebody's name, because sometimes they use initials, sometimes they use full names or nicknames. How our brave are honoured. Seems to be just a copy of the letter that Mrs. Coop, the mother, received from the war kind of office. Probably the same as might be in his military file. So if I wanted to get this and keep it, as you can see, I can just hit download and I can save it as a JPEG file or a PDF or a text, and it opens it up there, and then I can just sort of right click on it and save it to my computer as an image or however you want to save it. So Trove's really good for just being able to then, you know, if I wanted to, I would have probably saved all of these articles together into a file, which I've already done, but I'm just showing you how I would do it. So there seems to be quite a lot of mentions of his death, but they're all just sort of small mentions. I think that the one about his little going away party and the one that he's written sort of first person will be the most valuable to me. So I will go back and find copies of the second one, the one that I had trouble transcribing. So yeah, both the National Archives and Trove can really like show you a lot about your ancestors' World War I story. So definitely give them both a go. Okay, that's about it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know if you've also used these websites to do your own family history investigations. Let me know in the comments if you've got any good stories, and also let me know if you have any questions. Make sure that you hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye!